around San Onofre.
There we go.
Welcome to the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Vision radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is March 16th. Can't believe it. We're already a full 3 months into the year of 2016. I guess it's our lucky day, 3/16/16. So here we go. I have Donna Gilmore on the radio. As you know, on Wednesdays we do interviews with activists and people who actually care about our planet and are working for good on this planet. And Donna Gilmore is a shining example of that. She is the creator of San Onofre Safety.org, and that is the one place where you can go to get unbiased, factual, sourced information about the truth of what is going on in the nuclear industry. Is that a pretty good summation of your website, Donna?
Yeah, so the focus is, right now the main focus is all the nuclear waste from the reactors that's currently stored in about over 2,000 containers around the country, and it also has information on permanent repositories. The focus initially was regarding the California reactors, particularly San Onofre. But if you want a source for what's really going on with nuclear waste in this country, I've been told it's the go-to source for that information for the whole country.
Quite. It is. I would recommend everybody go there at sanonofresafety.org. Donna, why don't you give our listeners a quick rundown of how you got into this and what your background is? I mean, this is such a comprehensive site. I've never seen anything put together so meticulously well. So congratulations on that. But why don't you let our listeners know about yourself and how you got into this? What prompted you?
Well, my background was as a systems analyst, so I would analyze systems and analyze businesses and operations and automate them. And then I was in management for most of my career, and worked on mission-critical systems, large systems. I helped design the personnel payroll system for the state of California. Worked on critical systems for Department of Transportation, California. Worked with all levels of management. And I was supposed to be retired, and then I read in the local paper that San Onofre, at the San Onofre nuclear plant, Southern California Edison was firing employees for reporting safety problems. and I live 5 miles from that plant, and I always knew nuclear power was dangerous and the nuclear waste was dangerous, but I had never thought that I thought they would reward employees for finding problems. And what I've found out is decisions are being made based on profit rather than safety. And I met a whistleblower, electrical engineer, who they basically forced out because he reported there were circuit breakers that were never going to pop at the plant. For example, if you plug too many things in appliances in your kitchen, you know you're not going to have a fire because those wires heat up, the circuit breaker's going to trip. Well, at San Onofre, they've got circuit breakers that will never trip.
Oh, wow.
And Edison refused to fix it. I mean, so that was my introduction to what was going on. And then once I don't want to go into the whole story, but I ended up becoming active and helping to get San Onofre's 2 reactors shut down. They they redesigned critical parts. They failed. It's like $1 billion boondoggle. They failed, and they weren't fixable. And Edison wanted to restart one of the reactors, even though the other one had leaked radiation because of this design flaw. So I was a big part of the fight, worked with Friends of the Earth and a lot of local concerned citizens to get that plant shut down. And
Could I ask you a question, Donna? How long were you guys actively engaged in gathering together? And when you realized that, wow, Edison, we've got a problem here. How long from the time you guys started this very strong effort to shut the thing down until it actually happened? How long were you actually working on this?
Well, about 6 months before Fukushima is when I became involved.
Wow.
And I saw an article in the local paper. Another person who, whistleblowers, had gone to Gary Hedrick, who is San Clemente Green. They didn't know who to go to. There were employees at the plant that knew there were problems, but it wasn't working going to the NRC, but they knew there were serious critical problems with the plant. And so they would tell Gary, and then Gary got the information published in the local paper, the Orange County Register, and then that's how I found out how I got involved.
And how many people were actively engaged, like physically actively engaged, really working to get the San Onofre site shut down?
Well, not as many as you would think. I would say, maybe, you have people that show up at meetings, and then there's people that are doing the hard work and designing messaging and that. So, we would meet weekly. We have maybe 15 people that would show up regularly, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. And then we could draw bigger crowds at events, maybe 100 people. A lot of times less, a lot less.
Uh-huh.
And then what happened is we ended up finding some good messaging. When I got involved, they were arguing about what % of energy does San Onofre provide. And I said, wait a minute, that's the wrong framing. It's not how much it provides. The question is, how much does it need to provide?
Thank you.
Difference.
Yeah.
And I found somebody gave me a government document, a California Public Utilities Commission document that showed we have a 40% surplus of energy in California without the 4 nuclear reactors running in California. 40% surplus, okay? That doesn't include the buffer that we need, for contingency. And this was data from our Public Utility Commission. So it was indisputable evidence. And so I took the information, made it into a much simpler, easy to understand chart, and that was one of the tools that we used to we went to city councils all over Southern California, convincing city councils to pass resolutions agreeing to write their that elected officials, federal and state elected officials, to not restart San Onofre because it was shut. The plant actually leaked radiation. I think it was January 2012. So they ended up having to shut the reactor that leaked down. The other one was already shut down for refueling. And so that gave us a big advantage because they were down. So Edison was losing something like $1 million a day per reactor in profit is what I was told. That I don't have that confirmed, so you won't find that on my website because I only put on my website things that I have a document with the solid evidence from a government or a reputable scientific site. So, and where was I going? So we were able to convince city councils, even Republican city councils, who had been believing Edison, and they were afraid, oh gosh, if we don't have the plant, we're going to have brownouts and blackouts, and that was a big motivator to keep the plant open, huge motivator. So when I had this evidence and put it in a form, framed it properly, it was it was like kryptonite, to Southern California Edison because they were outed on that we don't even need the plant.
Can I ask you a technical question? How did you find out how much energy was needed? Where did you go to look for those sources? That's a great argument because there's many nuclear power plants around the country where many people probably have a suspicion that they are really not needed. They're just a fat cash cow for the licensees.
Well, you need to find out who's responsible for the supply of electricity in your state or region, and who's responsible for the transmission grid. All right. In California, we have the California Energy Commission that it deals with a lot of the supply issue. We have the Public Utility Commission that has to approve the money for new plants going in. And then we have the California Independent System Operator that manages the grid. The California Information System Operator, CAL-ISO, or they refer to it. They're pretty independent. They're pretty independent, and you can find honest information with them, and they show you.
Is that where you found there was a 40% excess?
Where this information came from was from the Public Utility Commission because the utilities have to make their case in front of the Public Utility Commission to get the money for what they want to do. And so this information was with the Public Utility Commission. And there were certain groups, Women's Energy Matters, was actively involved in the Public Utility Commission proceedings representing ratepayers. So they did the legwork. They were the kind of the experts on how to find information with the Public Utility Commission, and they created the original version of that chart. So I worked closely with Women Energy Matters, and Barbara George was in charge of that. Unfortunately, she died a while back.
Well, that's a good place for many people who want to, like right now, people in New York or, they're telling us that New York produces 20%. Indian Point produces, I think they said 20% of New York's electricity. That's their big thing about not shutting down.
Yeah, but see, that's the wrong frame. Again, that's the wrong framing. How much do they need to provide?
Right. That's a better question. Yeah.
Now the thing that throws a little wrench into that is with this the nuclear industry trying to claim you need us for global warming, to stop global warming, because we have a lower carbon footprint. They're trying to define themselves as clean energy. Well, if somebody uses the term clean energy when they're talking about nuclear power, have them go to the Webster's Dictionary and look up the word clean. Toxic substances is specifically listed as something that is free of toxic substances. So we need to stop our politicians, and Hillary Clinton, by the way, supports nuclear power.
That's right.
She swallowed the Kool-Aid. I think she's being misled with the facts about nuclear power. I used to think a lot of these politicians that supported nuclear power, that it was just about money and corruption. But after working with enough the political offices and things, they truly don't know the truth. The only people they have to listen to are their so-called nuclear experts.
That's right.
And they're being fed a lot of misinformation. And what shocked me is there's no one out there that's really been able to make the case to show otherwise, especially particularly on the nuclear waste issue. If people knew that the nuclear waste, the spent fuel they call it, that the nuclear plants are producing, we've got over 2,000 canisters of nuclear waste still sitting at every nuclear plant that ever was open, around the country, and I have a map on the website showing where these are. Most of them are in half-inch thick stainless steel that the NRC says can crack, and once it cracks, the crack will continue to grow on its own all the way through the wall of the canister in about 16 years.
Wow.
And also, in these canisters, when they load the fuel in the canisters, they have to remove. They do it underwater, and as they push, they replace the water with helium. They don't use air because guess what? If the spent fuel is exposed to air, it can explode. So you have 2,000 canisters. Each one of them are filled with about as much cesium, deadly cesium-137, as was released from Chernobyl. So you got about, 2,000 Chernobyl canisters sitting there, and the NRC and the industry have no way to know if any of them are cracking because that container is so thin, a lot of the radiation comes through it, and they can't get close to them to even begin to find a way to inspect for cracks, let alone know how deep the cracks are.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that we put this nuclear storage waste, the most toxic substance on the planet, into containers that we cannot inspect?
Yes. And how I found this out is one of the I'm now networked nationally with other concerned citizens and activist groups that are concerned about nuclear power and nuclear waste, the nuclear cycle period. And so that's been very valuable. One of the attorneys that the activist community uses, excellent attorney on NRC laws. She says, hey, I'm looking for somebody to listen in on this NRC technical meeting. It looks like it may be worth listening to. I'd never done that before, so I called in. Still pretty new at this stuff. I mean, if you'd asked me what I knew about nuclear waste a couple of years ago, I'd go, I don't care, I don't know, and I don't care. Nothing is sounding more boring to me than learning about nuclear waste.
Right, exactly.
So I listened into this meeting, and this is where they were talking with nuclear industry people, and they were talking about what are they going to do about the fact that they can't inspect these canisters. Well, you can't, even microscopic cracks can release millions of curies of radiation if you have a through-wall microscopic crack. Okay. So I'm listening to this meeting, and they're trying to figure out what are they going to do. These thin canisters have only been used. Most of them are less than 20 years old. Most of them a lot less than that. And so it's a very new industry. They used to store spent fuel in the United States in thick casks, 10 to 15 inches thick. Okay. Instead, they went to this half-inch thick material. they take these thin canisters and they stick them in with these thick concrete caps or overpack, and then they have lids on them with vent holes. They have vents in the lid because the fuel is so hot. There has to be a way for it to be vented out. So the thick concrete that's around them to keep the rest of the radiation from killing people if you get close to it, it has air vents in it. So anyway, so I'm getting a bit too techy here. So anyway, they said they couldn't inspect it, which means obviously you can't repair it, and then they had no plan in place to deal with leaks. Had no monitoring system that would alert them prior to it leaking radiation, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So I asked a question at the meeting because you had public call in. I said, "Wait a minute, let me make sure I'm understanding this. You're telling me that the nuclear waste that we have stored." We have 50 canisters, so we basically have 50 Chernobyls at San Onofre.
Which frankly, if you look at your website, they're sitting right next door to the freeway.
Right by the freeway, right by the beach. It's a very popular surfing beach, which is not a good idea for people to be, because they dump things in that water, tritium, all kinds of stuff. So they really shouldn't surf there, but or fish there. You see people fishing there. No warning signs up. So I said, wait a minute, am I understanding this right? You have no way to inspect, okay? Yeah, they agreed. And I said, well, even if you could inspect, let's say you figure out a way to do that. I mean, they've been using them for about 20 years, and they still had no way to inspect. I mean, you talk about a poor engineering design.
Wow.
And I said, well, even if you could inspect them, then what? How can you repair them? And the answer I got from the NRC was, well, that's one of the challenges we have here at the NRC.
Wow.
Yeah,
Laughing matter, really.
Yeah, and then the director of the Spent Fuel Management Division at the NRC, he called me up after the meeting. He found my cell phone somehow, called me up out of the blue, and I think he was trying to find some way to control me, but he said, well, Donna, I don't know why you're so concerned. The industry usually figures these things out before anything happens. I go, what? Oh, you mean like at Hanford, where it's been leaking radiation for years into the ground, heading to the rivers, or at Savannah River, which has leaky tanks? And he goes, oh, well, we're better than the DOE. Oh, guess what? No, you're not, because the only reason we don't have exploding canisters going on is because they haven't been in use long enough for cracks to grow all the way through the containers. So,
what is their plan for when that happens? Have they ever disclosed? I mean, they know
they don't have any approved plan at all for how to deal with it. That is even the crazier thing.
When was the first one installed?
The first one, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking at the fuel. Let me get my inventory year loaded. Okay, hold on. Cool. The first one was installed 27 years ago at H.B. Robinson, but it only had 7 fuel assemblies in it, and there's just a few of them.
We know for a fact that container is most likely leaking, and they're not able to inspect.
No. If it was leaking, you would know about it because you would have radiation monitors and a potential explosion. Okay.
Okay.
So we would know. Now, here's the science on stress corrosion cracking. Okay, that I had to learn about, and I've read a lot of scientific. When I hear something from the NRC or from the utility company, I go and I research. As a systems analyst, that's one of my things is knowing how to research all kinds of.
You should get classes on how to do this really seriously. You should give classes for people who want to stand up to the nuclear industry. That's one of the biggest issues across the nation that I've run into, especially like for the poor people in St. Louis who have the EPA lying to them every single day or misleading them and treating them like they just don't understand. Don't worry your pretty little head. Who cares if your child is dying of cancer? People don't know how to do research.
you don't want to talk to the PR people. All right, the only whether it's the EPA or the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, stay away from the PR people. They either don't know anything or they're knowing how to, frame things. You don't want to use them. Avoid the middle management if you can, because they got their jobs because they know how to be politically correct. Okay, a lot of them, not all of them, but in general. You want to get to the actual worker bees, and you want to get them one-on-one in a non-threatening environment, not in a public setting. So if you can find people at the working level, I mean, I work in government. Most people in government are there to do a good job. You've got in this career field, you've got engineers and scientists. They want to do a good job. The problem is, they may know things, but by the time it gets up the chain, it gets politicized, and that's when things get hidden, and that's when the misinformation comes. So if you want to find out what's going on, you got to go at the lowest level. Now, with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, there's a lot of information that's public, but people don't know how to find it. And their meetings with the nuclear industry are public. When I was listening into that meeting, I think there may have been one other person. There may not have even been one other person on the line from the public listening into that meeting. They're not used to having many people do these things. But they post on the NRC website what their meetings are, what they're about. There's documents about, there's all kinds of public documents there, so the information is there. And most of what you'll find on my site is actual NRC documents that provide this information. And so there, so it's all there. It's just knowing how to use it. And another thing is there's so much information, there's so many issues that a lot of activists can get too unfocused. I mean, you're over here a little bit, you're over there a little bit.
Yeah.
You need to pick the most make or break issues. I call it like triage at a hospital. They pick the one that's bleeding first, type of thing, or having the heart attack, or whatever. You need to pick what you think is the most important issue and stay focused on that. If you take on too much, there's not enough of this. You'll end up being ineffective. So I see a lot of errors that way where people are all over the place. And then you have to know your point of power. All right, and that's another place that people.
So what I hear you saying is that people who want to actively engage in stopping the nuclear industry from expanding and from closing these nuclear power plants, we need to focus on one task. Like I'm in the Northwest. There's a few people here that are strictly focused on closing the Columbia generating station, still hitting the wall. But I don't think they have ever asked that question: how much electricity do we actually need in the Northwest? We know how much they say it supplies, but we don't know how much it says it needs. So each state is different in terms of where you need to go to get that information and how public the information is. Right.
But I find most people haven't even looked for it.
That's true. In all the time I've been looking at this, that is not a question I've even asked. How much actually do we really need at the Columbia generating station?
I think you, as far as I know, you give us energy. So you must have a surplus because we get it. I think California gets it from you. I've looked at the 10-year transmission plan for California, and it shows where all the line runs and where the power comes from.
Huh.
That's public information in California. I don't know about Oregon, Washington, but so yeah, and you have all that hydro up there.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so there's two pieces. There's one piece is to know about, your supply, and then the demand. You have to know the supply and the demand. And your state has to have that information. If they're managing electricity, they know exactly where the power is coming from and where it's going. But you don't go to the utility. You don't go to the utility company to get that information. No, you have to go to the government entity, because you can't believe whatever the utility companies say. Okay.
This is such a valuable conversation, Donna. Thank you so much, because that is actually what's happened here. I know from my activity with being involved in the activists here is they're really seriously hitting a wall. I plan on interviewing Chuck Johnson from Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility next month, and that's, they're very actively engaged in shutting down the Columbia generating station. So I think these are good hints for people to act, because really what's happening now is I believe it's becoming very critical that all of us take action and learn to get outside of our comfort zone and do something a little different, like I've never listened to an NRC conversation. I've never dialed in and called. That's an excellent suggestion. So those are the kinds of things that puts the pressure on them to, like, wait a minute, the public is actually listening. Now we need to really pay attention to what we're saying.
Well, here's the value. I've worked with the NRC enough to know what they're good for and what they're not good for. Okay, they're a captured organization, so they're in general not going to do the right thing no matter what you do. Okay, so that's just how it is. I used to tell my staff would get so upset with how things were in the organization or with their customers or whatever it was. And I go, well, you can either use your energy up being upset about how things are, or you can accept how things are and figure out how you're going to win in spite of it. Take your choice of where you're going to put your energy,
Wow, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So in the NRC, what the NRC is good for is learning what the problems are, and getting documents and getting the solid evidence for those problems, and then you have the data you need to take the fight to people that are in a power and influence to do something about it. Okay. The other thing you can do with the NRC is there's times where you can submit public comments. They usually only give you 30 days. If you miss it, too bad. There's no do-over. They've got the federal law so rigged towards nuclear. So you can submit public comments, and there's we don't have time to go into it here, but there's this certain way that you need to do that, and you can sometimes get delays of approval. I've had three items where I've made public comments on canister design, posted in the Federal Register. Everybody thought it was a done deal, and I managed to make the kind of comments where they actually pulled it from approval. And I got another 6 months to make the fight,
Wow. What is the update on your fight with these safety, with these canisters?
I want to finish just because I've given you like half the piece here.
Okay, great.
On what you need to do. Now, I've talked to Chuck Johnson. You have a particular problem in Oregon, is that you have people outside the state that own part of your utilities, So that is an extra problem. You may need some kind of an initiative or something. We can't talk strategy, but I would be willing to talk strategy with anybody in the country that wants to talk to me about what they can do, what works, what doesn't work.
Okay, so maybe
here we work with Friends of the Earth here. They actually stayed at my house during the fight. So they had paid activists. We had one donor in Laguna Beach that gave millions of dollars to help with the fight. So eventually you do need some. There's a good chance you do need some money eventually, because you need attorneys or expert witnesses or whatever. But I learned a lot from that experience, and Friends of the Earth was great. Most of all the other NGOs, they were nowhere to be found. So so Friends of the Earth is the best NGO for the nuclear issues that I have seen in terms of NEARS does a good job too. I don't want to just discount that. NEARS is more of kind of an information networking operation, and they've been they play a critical role in keeping all the activists around the country educated and connected. So I want to, give a shout out to them on that point. But so you need to win these fights at the state level. You're not going to win them at the federal level, and you need to start grassroots at the local level. You need to educate your city councils. They represent you. It doesn't necessarily have to be the city council where you live. You have to kind of find at least one of them that is open enough to listen and get educated about things. And that's what we do. I found out that if a city council spoke at a meeting, that would make the newspaper. If just one of us got up there and spoke, most of the time we didn't get quoted. I mean, there's ways to get quoted, but, So I said, okay, well, if we go through city councils and we can get them on board, pass resolution, write letters, and get them educated, then we can get some free media. And that did work. And so we used that strategy, and that played a big role in getting press and getting cities and counties on board once they knew the truth. The other thing we had as an advantage here is San Onofre have the absolute worst safety complaint record from employees to the NRC, off the chart compared to all the other over 100 nuclear reactors in the whole country. We had a super high complaint rate and the highest rate of retaliating against employees who filed complaints. So I made up a simple chart with they had 5 years of data on the NRC website. I made up a nice visual chart that showed it with the source. NRC is the source. Remember that?
Right.
You pick a source that they can't dispute,
It's their own source. It's their
own source. Exactly. I mean, I had a city council person. We go to city council meetings. Edison would be there, and I would we'd hand out the chart showing we don't need the NRC. We'd hand out the chart showing worst safety record in the country for ignoring safety issues and complaints by employees. And I had on the worst safety record, I had one city council person hold up that chart, look Edison in the face, say, "Why should we believe you? You've been lying to us. You have the worst safety record in the country." And I had there was another in the city of Irvine. We had the person who's I think he's now married, was city council person, Republican, hold up that energy chart because that's about money. Hold up that energy chart. Look at Edison in the face and say, "This isn't what Edison told me," and he was just shaking it at him,
Wow.
So we were able to, so if you, and you don't go into, depending on your environment, you choose what you want to take on. If you're trying to get a nuclear plant shut down, stick with that. You don't have to go into, well, we need to use renewables or we need to not use gas to replace it. Just pick the one to fight, because that way you're going to get more people on your side. You don't have to take on the other arguments about is renewable ready or not.
The solution, in other words, we don't need to provide the solution. We just need to provide the facts of how dangerous this thing is.
Yeah. Well, how dangerous, and that we don't
and expensive.
You have to remember your audience, who you're talking to, what's important to them, and it's like selling. You have to sell to their need, their want. You have to know your audience. You need to dress like your audience. You don't. People tend to believe other people that kind of look like them. So you need to. So it's important. There's a lot of these kind of things that are important. It's not. You don't want to be discounted as some. And you do not want to say anything that you don't have a document from a credible source, and the best sources are government sources or scientific labs that the government uses. I mean, you use those sources. Don't say anything that you can't justify. Don't talk about a high cancer rate if you don't have a document that is a peer-reviewed, strong, indisputable report. Because as soon as you say something where you don't have any credibility of facts behind it, you lose them. Because if you say one thing that they can discount, then you're not a credible person to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And we can win this without...
Regardless of everything else that you've said prior, as soon as you open your trap about one thing that's an opinion and not verifiable or hearsay, they will just discount you entirely.
Right,
Wow.
yes. I mean, you can talk among your friends about it and bitch about it all you want and suspect it, and, but, and I have, people have wanted me to post things on my website, and I go, hey, give me your credible source and I'll post it. And then most people either don't have it or they're believing a scientific, if somebody sends me even a scientific link to some cancer data, I actually read,
right,
not just a summary. I look at the whole doggone report, and a lot of times it's based on correlation and not causation, or the sampling is small, or there's some other defect. If there's any way at all that this really isn't considered, and I even have a research doctor that I will send things to. I'm going, this doesn't look good, or this one looks good. I'll send it to him and have him vet it. Would this pass muster at a scientific level? A lot of times he says no, so I don't use it.
Uh-huh.
I have a health risk section on my website. Under issues, I have lots of different subjects.
Right, I see
health
that.
Risk, radiation monitoring, all kinds of different things. And under the health risk issue, everything you find there you can use. And I use sources such as the EPA, the CDC,
National Academy of Sciences. I mean, when you open up that link, the first thing that popped to my brain was National Academy of Sciences, 37 to 50% more vulnerable. Women who are, according to the National Academy of Sciences, 37 to 50% more vulnerable than adult men to the harmful effects of ionizing radiation. That's right from there. And then you have like a really awesome chart that shows the health effect, time of on-site, and exposure in millisieverts. This is a really awesome link of a page.
Yeah, this is government information, so you don't have that. They can't argue with that. I think one of the best ones is the German study. It's a peer-reviewed study, and around every nuclear plant in Germany, they found that children, I think it's under 5. I haven't looked at the page around, but small children, most under 5, had over twice the rate of childhood leukemia. And see, nuclear plants, just to operate a nuclear plant, you have to release radiation into the environment. That's just how they work. And the NRC requirement is called, you can only release what's as low as reasonably achievable.
Wow.
And we only get annual reports of what they release, and these are self-reported by the industry. You can't get, any real-time data or monthly data.
That's quite a bit of double talk, which is annually allowable. Say that again, annually allowable reportable?
Achievable. It's ALARA. What is that? ALARA. ALARA.
Wow.
Oh God,
that is so outrageous.
As low as reasonably achievable.
So they just accept. I read that in Dr. Goffman's book that they just accept the fact that they know they're going to get cancer and they know they're going to have genetic mutations. They know that.
No, they will not. They will not say that. They will not say that. They will not say that you're going to have cancer. They will just say as low as reasonably achievable, and that you'll just get a lot of the double talk. The safe word. They use the safe word all the time, but.
Wow.
They won't admit to that.
1.33 times higher rate. Your site says 1.33 times the normal rate if they live within 6.2 miles, over twice the normal rate, 2.19 if they lived within 3.1 miles. That is
I think that study was a big motivator for Germany to make the decision to abolish nuclear power in Germany.
Yes, and they're actually being sued by those licensees right now for loss of profit.
Well, they have a better political structure too.
Yes,
now speaking of politics, the only candidate running for office that is against nuclear, at least that I've been able to find, is Bernie Sanders.
That's right.
And if we want, there are 5 commissioners on the NRC that control our destiny in nuclear. 5 commissioners. They're appointed by the president, but they have to be confirmed by the Senate. Obama could only get one safety-conscious commissioner out of that 5 because of the politics, all right?
Wow.
So we need a Bernie Sanders there, because Hillary Clinton is swallowed the Kool-Aid, she's buying into the nuclear. You know, she has not used good judgment. I think her intentions are good, but her judgment is not good. You know, this is a woman that supported the Iraq War. You know,
right?
We need somebody with good judgment, because you don't get a do-over.
Right.
Those people that died from the Iraq War, the Iraqis, the Americans, the men and women, the families, they came back dead or damaged. You don't get a do-over on that.
Right. There's actually no way. I mean, I personally don't accept her apologies. I honestly, I don't think that she actually gave it what she needed to. Some real serious thought. I mean, I think they just click their heels and say Sig Heil and do whatever the military tells them to do.
Well, you know, I think it's an issue of that. I think the intentions are good. I think her intentions are good. I just think she doesn't have good judgment. You know, Bernie Sanders is a true, you know, independent. He did logical thinking and good. He has a track record of good judgment. And
being committed to his issues. He's actually been on the side of these issues for a long time. You know what I mean? There's been a few issues where he has grown in terms of his positions, but most of the time he has really seriously been very thoughtful from the very, very beginning. I mean,
right, and he's very and even though the election didn't go well last night. The best states are yet to come. The northwest, the coast, you know, California and Oregon, Washington,
that's right.
New York,
Well,
and then New York. I mean, the thing is, those votes last night. I mean, they were within like 1,000 or 2,000 votes difference between winning or losing.
That's right.
And the more, and this has to be won on the grassroots level. We need as many people as possible volunteering to call other prospective voters. I hosted a Sunday where we had 15 people here, just average citizens, calling. They have a really good system there. You just call in. It's very easy. They give you a little script, automatic caller, and you talk to people. You know, there's people that are on the fence out there that aren't going to even want to bother voting, and it's critical that everybody listening to this call, tell your friends. I mean, if we don't get a pro-safety, anti-nuclear activist, not activist, but if we don't get somebody with good judgment that understands that nuclear is not a serious option if we're going to survive this planet, it's on us. It's on us. You know, so it's not just sitting and listening to a call and, this is interesting. You need to, get off your butt and start making calls. You can do it from home. You can go to a party, or you can learn on your own and do it. I mean, those votes were so close last night.
How many people do we know that have really, have friends who, they don't want to talk about politics with their friends, but I personally have challenged a couple of people, frankly, clients that I know, and challenge them to go look at Bernie Sanders' website and challenge them to go look at what the issues are and compare them. And do you know what? I didn't have to convince him. He actually looked at the issues and looked what was being rationally put out there about this person is actually, Bernie Sanders has a platform that has been vetted and is viable. It's not like some haywire thing. And he really is the only candidate who does not believe that nuclear is the answer. I mean, when we start talking about green energy, you cannot put nuclear in that pot. at all.
Well, clean energy. Yeah, and he's been able to get things done. He's been able to work with Republicans. So he's not just an idealist. He's actually practical and knows how to make things happen. So you don't want somebody that's just an idealist that doesn't know what they're doing. You know?
And he also knows the backstory. He's been in Congress long enough. He was in Congress and now the Senate. I mean, was a mayor, he was a congressman, and now he's a senator. So he's seen all the arms of branches of government, how they interact and how they work. He has a really good understanding of it all.
And he has, and in terms of who's going to win the general election, I mean, the polls, even though polls you can't always go by, but most of the polls are showing him beating any Republican candidate, definitely beating a Donald Trump, where Hillary, no. And I mean, there's no way people that are independent, I don't see independents voting for Hillary at all. I mean, I live in an area that has a lot of Republicans.
I won't vote for Hillary Clinton.
They just won't do it. They'll stay home. If they don't like Donald Trump, they're still not gonna vote.
I'm gonna write in Bernie Sanders' name. I am not voting for Monsanto Clinton. I call her Monsanto Clinton. She is an offender. You're much kinder about her than I am, Donna.
The thing is, the world is not black and white. The world is not black and white, and you still have to make a choice, even if you have to hold your nose doing it, because you have to look at the consequences. You're going to have somebody in there for president, whether you like it or not. You better decide which one's going to do the least amount of damage, because if you don't vote, it's on you what happens. And if you write it Bernie Sanders, you're throwing away your vote. So you can be all kinds of idealistic all you want, but you may just help Trump get into office.
I actually don't believe that she is much worse than Trump. I don't think she's any better. I don't think that between the two, I don't know who's worse. I honestly don't see. To me, she's a very hidden. I'm one of those people that thinks that she is a sneaky, evil person, and I don't believe a word that comes out of her mouth, and I think she will do exactly what the industrial military complex wants. She's never seen a war she didn't like. I don't trust her at all.
I get what you're saying. I was at the California Democratic. I got invited to speak at the California Democratic convention they held in Anaheim, and when I got to so there was no enthusiasm for Hillary there. So hopefully we won't have to make a choice. But before Elizabeth Warren was speaking, and a bunch would have loved her to run, but there was no enthusiasm in California. So hopefully it won't come to that. But I think you need to take a real hard look at Donald Trump. Political. Anyway, someone did a count of how many times Trump lied in his speech, and it was every 5 minutes was another lie. Literally every 5 minutes was a lie. So you can't go by whatever he says. And I don't know how you find out the truth of a Donald Trump, but his language about people and his rhetoric, maybe he's trying to do a PR stunt just to get the vote, but somehow you need to do better research to figure out what he's all about. I mean, if you think Hillary's a liar, this guy is, he's just better at it and he's more entertaining. But you need to find a way to take a hard look. But he's inciting people to riot, basically. Oh, kill them, and
he kicks people out at the drop of a hat. He's completely disrespectful, and frankly, he's disrespectful to anybody of color and women. He is so incredibly disrespectful at such a deep level. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so I'm
not saying he's an angel and I'm a Trump supporter, but frankly, both of them scare the daylights out of me. This is why, I'm a big Bernie supporter, because honestly, the two of them are twins, in my view. They're like just as bad. She's just as bad of a liar. I actually.
Well, I tell you what. Let's don't worry about that right now. We've
got 5 minutes left. Good idea.
Let's make sure that we're putting all our energy in, so we don't have to make that kind of a choice.
That. We get Bernie elected. Let's put our energy into making it happen, so that Bernie wins the nomination. Because if Bernie wins the Democratic nomination, he wins the presidency. That's the bottom line. He will win. He will win, and that's why they're scared of him, because he's going to win when he gets the nomination. So back to this nuclear industry, Okay, on the nuclear waste, I haven't posted it yet, but these canisters. I think that the most critical issue that we have to face right now in this country is the nuclear waste issue. We need to stop them from using these thin canisters to put the waste in, and we need to have them deal with the canisters that already have the waste in them, and get them into different containers before we start having Chernobyl explosions. I mean, I'm at a point that I'm fighting this battle at the state level with the California Energy Commission, the Public Utility Commission, and all kinds of other ways to stop them from buying almost 100 more of these thin canisters here at San Onofre. And a lot of people don't want to get in on this fight because they have some idea that waste that is going to go somewhere else, But the reality is the industry has tried for, 50 years to move this waste to other places, and there's too many. Nobody wants it, and legal battles come up. You get all kinds of politics and legal issues and scientific issues, and it's not going to happen. But a lot of people are delusional that you're going to be able to get this waste out of here. So we've had a fraction. If you live near a nuclear plant, there seems to be a split in the activists, where some of them are so focused on getting out of here, they're not paying attention to what it's stored in. Wow.
And once this hits the air, just like the nuclear test bombs, and just like Chernobyl and Fukushima, once that stuff goes airborne, it circulates the northern hemisphere. So, you can't just say, stick it somewhere else and it's not a problem. And the NRC does not allow transport of nuclear waste that even has partial cracks in the containers, even if it hasn't gone all the way through. Well, they don't even know if they have cracks. So you want to take so it's a nonsensical issue.
Wow.
And then we need to force them to have some way.
I want to give you a warning. We have about a minute and a half left here.
Yeah.
It has gone
So
quickly.
anyway, so people want to learn more about this, learn their situation in their state, get some tips on fighting it. They can take a look at sanonofresafety.org and get some tips and tools. There's even some tips on samples for how to draft city resolutions. There's handouts for cities and that type of thing. So there's the tools there, and you get educated.
This is an extensive website. Your website is completely awesome, Donna. I have to say, it is the best website I've seen in this issue. It provides anybody who goes to your website with real information on how to take action and verifiable sourced information. It is a remarkable website. I mean, you've done an excellent job. Look, they can contact through the website. They can contact me through the website. Please do contact her. We do need all action taken care of. Look, we have about 25 seconds left. I want to thank you, Donna, for joining us this morning. This is Donna Gilmore of sanonofresafety.org. I hope that you will come back and join us again. These conversations go too quickly. And I want to encourage everyone to put your courage feet on, take action, get engaged, go to the NRC website, get engaged, and we'll talk to you guys Friday. Thank you, Donna, for joining us.